Hello, we are having a late start today. It's my own fault. Like always, it always comes down to me. I have been busy getting the room set up differently with a new computer, and I wanted to see what would happen if I were to work with you. So I can already tell I'm making the table jiggle, which makes the camera jiggle, trying to avoid the big white forehead. Here I are. How are you, Christine? Oh, Andrea. I was busy getting this room set up. Hi, Ed. So today's topic is going to be about how to set up a tank right from the beginning. And I've got a whole list of things I want to talk about. And to some people, that may feel like it's just a repeat of previous topics. But I don't think we've really had a topic that just went down a bullet list and just went into each item. So I wanted to do that today. And I'm hoping that it will be something that someone new to the hobby will say, this is exactly what I wanted to know about. So first of all, welcome to the live stream. We do these every single Saturday at 2 p.m. The name of the channel is melevsreef. My name is Mark. I'm known by everyone online as Melev, and I run melevsreef.com where I sell things for the aquarium hobby. See, how was that for a commercial? Pretty good, huh? Today's topic is about how to set up a tank or what you need. And this is a big opinion piece. And I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of disagreement, and I'm okay with that. I also feel like there's going to be people saying, you don't need that, which is, again, disagreement. But the point is, like, there are lots of ways of setting up a tank, which is really frustrating for someone new to the hobby because they see so many ways and they hear so many different approaches, and they get really frustrated. And they said, well, how do I set up a tank like that one? Or how do I set up a tank like that one? So I'm going to go into what I feel is the right gear to set up an aquarium for success. And this is kind of a growing topic, so as we chat in the live chat, I'm hoping that we'll be able to find some extra points that maybe I've omitted. But the basics are going to be the basics. And I want you to also consider this. When you're new in the hobby, you get really excited, and you read magazines or you see things online, and you think, I need to buy that. I need that toy as well. And you keep acquiring things. I just visited a tank on Tuesday night, that was really pretty, and yet he had a whole pile of brand new gear he's never even opened or hooked up. And he's been in the hobby for about a year and a half, and he's very excited by gear, but he doesn't hook it up. So I told him he should buy a lot of things from my website immediately. But I want you to know also that not all gear is necessary. It can definitely make your life easier, and you can say, oh, I wouldn't live without it, and I probably agree with you. I wouldn't live without it either. But look at Jimmy's gorgeous 600-gallon reef that I shared last year. It was 3-part dosing, no skimmer, no water change, ginormous refugium, and he feeds it all the time. And you're just like, wow, how is he doing that? And where's all the fancy gear? So, and then Tammy's reef, which I showed you a preview on Facebook, and that's one that I'm working on. That one also, she had a lot of stuff in the beginning, and she has kind of removed some of it and kept some parts, and it's more simplistic than you might imagine. And when you see the tank, in the full-length video, you'll be really impressed. So look forward to that. Thank you, Beth. I really appreciate the super chat. That was nice of you. All right. So let's just start off with the very first thing you'll need to buy is always the cheapest part of what you're buying, and that is the aquarium. And it's kind of an ongoing joke. You buy the box of glass or acrylic that you want to put your livestock in, and at first you're thinking that's so much money. And you get it, and you find out it's like the cheapest thing you've ever bought. And everything else costs more. And it can be a little bit frustrating if you don't know that in advance. So I'm just giving you the heads up. You're going to spend some money. I did a previous live stream where I talked about what does it cost to set up a tank, and I told people to set it up right. Will probably cost you about $47 a gallon. So if you're looking at a 35-gallon tank, or you're looking at a 100-gallon tank, or you're looking at a 700-gallon tank, do the math and see up front if that is something within your wheelhouse, because it may be a little bit more than you anticipated. That being said, you shouldn't be dissuaded, and there are ways to save money. And I'm not going to get into all that because I did it in the live stream, so go watch that one. But let's just go to the next point. So we got a tank, now we need a stand to put it on. And if the tank has a plastic trim on the top and it's got some kind of lights that you don't want to look at, it's going to need a canopy, and that's going to hide everything. The other benefit of the canopy is it makes it look like furniture in your home, and it's not just this weird open body of water. unless you're trying to have that sleek, elegant, rimless look, like the anemone cube behind me. That one has no top on the area above, but things can jump out. Water can slosh over the edge and run down the side of your tank, which is kind of annoying to me, and I kind of hate when I do that, because you're using your magnet, you're cleaning, water sloshes over, and then your magnet gets wet, and then you keep wiping salty crap on the outside. So I actually prefer tanks that have what are called Eurobrace, which is a frame along the top that keeps it together. And a canopy is even better, so you can just do your thing and not worry about the outside of your tank getting runs or drips. And again, like I said, the jumping out part kind of sucks too. Now, if you go rimless and you're not going to do canopy, you have the option of putting on a screen on top, and there are different kits on the market. Again, something you'll want to buy, a cover to keep your livestock inside. And certain livestock has to be kept inside. If you said, I love the saltwater hobby, but I want an octopus, that's an entirely different video. But I'll tell you up front, it needs to be a sealed box, and those animals are very intelligent, and they'll find a way to escape. So it's going to take a lot of homework on your part to make sure you set it up right. But if you're doing eels or you're doing fish, fish jump, and eels escape as well. And so you're going to need some kind of a cover on top of your tank. If you are doing a tank like mine that's in wall, you may have sheetrock and then cabinet doors on the front to access, if you so desire. And that, again, is more cost. You're building out a project through a wall, and you're going to have to cut the wall. You're going to have to someone move some electrical probably, and you're going to need a special stand that fits within the wall, and again, the woodwork that wraps it all. That's a cost that you're going to be dealing with. But if you're trying to set up something beautiful, thinking about the entire project and not just the box of water is a really important thing to do right from the beginning. Now, filtration for your box of water is going to be one of three ways. Either it'll be a smaller tank that's called all-in-one, and the filtration hides in the back, or you'll have hang-on-back, HOB, equipment, which might be a protein skimmer hanging on the back or a reactor hanging on the back, to remove phosphates, to clarify the water, to trap particulates. It could even be a hang-on-back filter, a regular filter with floss and media within it, and you change that once a week. That is one method. Those are the two methods that work in the tank. The other choice, which is my choice, and I always recommend, is to run a sump, which is an acrylic box under your tank, which will then hide all the equipment so that it just drains straight down. It's hiding in the cabinet or it's hiding behind the wall, and you can have all that stuff happen down there, and you have lots of room to work, and you added a little bit of extra water volume to your display tank, and at the same time you have a nice open clean top with no weird gear hanging against the wall. I'm trying to think of everything I forgot on my list. I have my big list here, and I was just thinking, you also probably in the back of your mind should think about a way of protecting the wall from any damage from salt water. So consider what you're putting it against. Is it something critically important? Is it, really high-end woodwork, for example? So what would you do to protect it from damage? But that's a side point. So tank, stand, filtration, the sump, which not only can hide, like I said, a nicer protein skimmer, because you have lots of choices then. You can put your heaters in there to heat the water. You can put reactors in there. You can put probes in there to measure the water. You can draw water from it for various reasons. You can replenish water. So speaking of water, I would definitely say you need an RODI system. And a lot of people might think up front, I don't want to buy that. I can go buy my water at the fish store, and you totally can. But lugging home jugs of water is exhausting. They can slosh, they can be wet on the outside and dirty and mess up the inside of your vehicle or your trunk, if you care. And so it's a consideration. What do you want to do? For me, I always had an RODI system. I went from tap water, because that's what I started with. I didn't know better. And as soon as I learned not to use tap water, I went to RODI and never looked back. And an RODI filter is a reverse osmosis deionizer filter. It's a 4 or 5 stage system. You hang it on the wall near a water source that has a drain nearby, and you make your own pure water. The benefit of having that system in your home is not only can you make water for your aquarium, but you can also make drinking water for your household. So it's win-win. Gotta put that thing down so I quit messing with it. If you don't want to buy an RODI system immediately because of upfront costs, I understand, but typically you're going to get one for under $200, and it's going to last you for 5, 6, 8 years if you take good care of it. You will need to replace filters on it twice a year, and you have to replace the DI resin as frequently as it is consumed, which varies from county to county. I'd say nationwide, but this is an international viewing audience, so worldwide. It's really important that you have really good water to start with. Now we've got water, we need salt. So you must own salt mix. And that is one of my, it's not even a pet peeve, it's just kind of an annoyance. When someone says, oh my God, I've got a problem in my tank and I don't have any salt. How do you not have salt? It is the most basic thing your aquarium needs, salt. Always have salt on hand. So buy it by the case, buy it by the bucket. Have some salt on hand. And if you use the last bag, go get another box of salt so you have it ready for when you need it a month from now. Because if some weird thing were to happen in a week or two, you're going to need salt. Can't be out of it. And the beauty of it is it can be delivered to your door because of Amazon. So never forget that. There are a lot of brands on the market, and there are lots of opinions about what's a good salt, what's a bad one. Ironically, some of the salts that people say they would never use are being used in public aquariums that you visit when you're out and about with your families, and you travel. And that salt's been around for 20 or 30 years, and the livestock lives. So I'm not here to put down any one brand or to hype up another one. I right now have been using Aqua Vitro for several years. I used Red Sea for several years. What else did I use? I started with Instant Ocean. I know there's another one missing in the middle. I did use Fritz briefly, and I might go back to that again. So there's lots of different ones. And no matter what salt you buy, you want to test it. Now, to test it, you need test kits. So I need you to buy test kits. That is part of setting up a tank. You cannot just get a box of water, get some water from the fish store, get some livestock, and then just assume it's all going to be great, because it's not. Things are changing every day, every hour, and a test kit will give you the information you need to know. I'm waiting for the train to go by. I don't know if you can hear it. All right, somebody said not Morton salt people, and he's right. And I was actually going to make this kind of a humorous segment, and I was going to bring in all these silly props, but I don't know how much you want to be entertained versus how much you want to get knowledge. So I want to make sure that I'm just giving you good information and not be too silly. I almost dropped that. Where can I put this where I don't break it? I'm sitting on a chair here, so I don't have to stand the whole time. Let's try that. All right, test kits. When you're starting a brand new tank, you're going to need ammonia, nitrite, nitrate. I really don't care what brand of kit you use. API is very popular. It's the master test kit. Works fine for what you need to do. That gets you through the cycle. Once the cycle is complete, that means you have gotten rid of all the ammonia out of the system. You've grown a healthy bacterial natural filtration within the rockwork and sand. And I've jumped ahead a little bit, but I'll come back. You will then be able to consider getting ready to add livestock, but you need to know more than those three. You need to know what the salinity of your tank is. So you got to measure salinity, and I highly recommend a refractometer. I did a video, 2 years ago, and I talked about refractometers, and I demonstrated a crappy hydrometer that leaked right out of the package. I've never used that kind because they're just too cheesy to me, and a lot of people, I'd say 50 or 60% of the audience were hydrometer users. Like, wow, I had no idea. So, my mistake, I was wrong. I didn't realize they were that, maybe they're the most used because every fish store pushes it at you. They're dirt cheap. Sometimes they come for free with a bucket of salt, and so you think that's good enough. But it's really not the best way to measure salinity. It's a very, very, very inexpensive device. It's like a very cheap thermometer that comes from China that has like a couple of watch batteries in it. And it turns out to tell you bad information. It gives you wrong temperature readings. And you're thinking, but, how could this be wrong? It's digital. But it's so cheap. It's such bad quality. So I push people toward refractometers, which is basically like a little tiny telescope that you hold up to the light and you look through it, and it gives you an exact reading, which you can calibrate. Very important. So you need a refractometer and you need a calibration solution. And that would be something you need to have from the beginning, because when you choose your salinity, which I recommend 1.026, and you're buying your salt water from the fish store because you're not making your own yet, you're going to need to know that it's 1.026. And if it's 1.021 or 1.019 or 1.028, you've got to make adjustments. And the way you adjust it is by adding more RO water to make it less salty, or adding more salt, which means you need to own salt to make it saltier. So you see, all these things work together, and if you're missing some of the pieces of the puzzle, you'll never complete the project. So you've got your initial tests of temperature, salinity, and ammonia nitrite, nitrate, and those are done and your tank is cycled. Now you want to add some kind of fish and corals. It would be great if you knew alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, phosphate. So you need those test kits as well. And those I would not get from API. I would get them from ELOS, or there's Red Sea, there's NIOS, there's trying to think who else is out there. Oh, I'm HANA checkers. I mean, there's a lot of choices out there for that. And I have found that while I lean toward ELOS for most of it, there's a couple of devices that I like. I like the HANA alkalinity checker a lot, so that's a good one. If you're colorblind, using a digital checker is nice because you can put the solution in there and it gives you a digital readout on the front. It's also good to make sure those packages don't expire, those test kits don't expire, make sure they are current. Whenever I open a new test kit, I write right on the lid the date I opened it so I know a year from now to throw it away. I don't use it till it's empty. Also, test kits are meant to be used every single week. That's why I always say, today is water test Saturday, and I want you guys to test your water of your tank to make sure everything is well. If you just look at the fish and look at the corals and say everything's fine, instead of testing the water, you'll never know when things are really starting to get out of line. So test kits are very important and you should own them. I also recommend from time to time verifying your numbers some other way, whether you do your testing and then you go to the fish store and you have them test as soon as you are finished, and you can compare their numbers to the ones you just did on the same, within the same hour. Don't test Friday and then go to them on Sunday and say, hey, can you check my water? Because that's not the same time period. You need to test the same sample of water, so to speak. So scoop out some water, get your measurements, write them down, scoop out some water, go to the fish store, and have them test, even if you have to pay for it, and just make sure your numbers are right. And if you do that once a year, you're just double checking your results. All right. I talked about diluting or making your water more salty. How do you do that? You need a container to do that in. So you got to have some kind of a barrel, or in a smaller tank you can get it by with a bucket, but I'm telling you, barrels are so much easier. So get yourself like a trash can that's made of plastic, that is made of food grade material, which is HDPE, high density propylethylene, and that is used for food grade. Anything that has to touch food is safe for aquariums. And you want that type of container to put your water in, to stir it, to mix it, to heat it, and to pump out of, like to pump water into your tank from what you've just mixed up. So having the RO system and having the box of salt, it only makes sense you have a barrel that you can mix your water in. Now I've got a barrel sitting right here in my area. I'm going to point you at it right quick. There's my barrel that you can see is used to mix salt water. I don't have to use it very often, but right now I've got a project I'm about to work on, and it's going to require some salt water, so I've got it right there. That barrel, by the way, was originally from Dr. Pepper. It was filled with Dr. Pepper syrup, and it took days and days to get clean, and I think I bought it for like 20 or 25 bucks at a farm supply. You can buy brand new barrels that have never been used before for maybe 55, 60 bucks. I don't know, maybe $1 a gallon. I like them because they're super durable. I've had that one for 8, 10 years, and I cut the entire top off, but initially they have just like a small, I forget what they call it. I feel like it's a bulkhead hole, maybe. I don't know, but it's too small to do anything. Definitely too small to heat or drop a power head in or anything, so I cut a giant hole in the top. And then, of course, you need to measure the temperature of that barrel, so you need thermometers. You need thermometers for your tank and for your mixed salt water that you're going to do for water change. And, that doesn't have to be expensive. I really like to buy a bunch of glass thermometers from the fish store. They're about $3 each. And you get 3 or 4 of them, and you stick one in the tank, and you stick one in the barrel, and you kind of compare temperatures. You can be smarter and take the one out of your tank that you just measured and stick it in the barrel and wait and make sure it's the same in case there's a discrepancy. But if you have multiples, it just makes things move along more quickly. You're going to need a pump to keep that water circulating while the salt water is mixed. You don't want stagnant salt water. Salt water has to always be moving, unless it's in a sealed container with a screwed-on lid. And in that case, your salt water is good for about a month. So if you're buying jugs of salt water from the fish store, I wouldn't use them past a month. But for that first few weeks, it's totally fine to use. Most people, I think, would probably buy the water, haul it home, and start using it as soon as it's the right temperature. And again, how do you heat up a little jug other than room temperature? You're not really matching your tank. So having a barrel you can dump it in, get a power head in there to circulate it, put a heater in there to get it to the right temperature, and then a larger pump, or that circulation pump could be a large pump with tubing, and use it to pump water into your aquarium. And that was one of the first things I did way back when I set up my 29-gallon aquarium and I was doing water changes. I did like everyone does. I stuck a tube in there and I sucked in the hose and I made it drain down. And then I had my bucket full of salt water and I lifted it up with my arms and I pushed and my hand was shaking and I'm trying to pour it into the tank and not spill it over the edge. Such a beating. I was like, I'm not going to keep doing that. That's for sure. And so I went ahead and I bought myself a pump and about 10 foot of tubing. And I just dropped the pump in my bucket and held the tubing on top and plugged it in or hit a switch. And it was great. It made me really happy. So I would recommend that to you. It's much better than trying to lift buckets of water above your head. There's the other choice. You step up on a chair and you have someone hand you the bucket and then you pour it in. But again, that's a lot of lifting. And 5 gallons, let's just call that 50 pounds. It's heavy. So to just stand there and hold a hose and pump it into your tank is so much simpler. And that's what I recommend. Next thing you need for your aquarium, now that we've talked about all those basic moves, would be that you need sand and rock. And there are some people that feel that they can get any sand anywhere, and that is not true. You want to use aquarium sand, and I really like the Tropic Eden brand. That's what's in this tank and that tank. But Carib Sea makes a great sand, and you can buy that at the fish store. Do not buy play sand at Home Depot. It will not work out. I can just tell you that. I don't even have to explain it. Just don't do it. There was people in the past, and there's probably still to this day, that grab sand from the beach. And yes, you could do that. You just don't know what's in it. You don't know what's been spilled on it, if it's gotten any toxins in it, if it has any trace metals. I mean, you could sieve through it trying to remove any larger issues, but it's kind of dangerous, but it's your choice. If you want to do that, you could. You'll have to test from time to time and see if anything weird shows up in your water that could be from that sand. So I like using aquarium sand that's already been made for our aquariums and has been rinsed, and so I just spend the money. That's part of that $47 a gallon I talked about. And then rock. There are people that want to buy rock from a quarry, and I prefer to get I really prefer live rock, which I buy at the fish store, but live rock is getting harder and harder to get these days because of the import-export problems that have been going on for the last few years. So at this point, you might be buying live rock from another hobbyist that's getting out of the hobby. That's a great way to get rock. And they've got this rock that's been established in a tank. Yes, it's got hair algae or it's got aptasia or whatever, but you can cook that live rock in a barrel in total darkness for a few months and rejuvenate it. And there's a video about that on my channel as well that you can watch later. But that will save you money. And there's a rock in the middle of this tank right here that I bought, I don't know, in 2000. And it cost me $72, and I still have that rock to this day. It wasn't that heavy. It was just expensive rock. And the anemone is still holding on to it, which is kind of funny, but that's fine. If you want to save money, dry rock is the way to go. There's a lot of people start their tanks with dry rock and dry sand. I'm the opposite extreme. In my opinion, strongly is to use live rock and live sand because there's all that beneficial bacteria. Where with dry rock and dry sand, you have nothing. You have dry rock and dry sand, and you add salt water, and you add bacteria in a bottle, and you drop in a fish, and you put in a shrimp, and you add some pods, and you put in some macroalgae, and you have all these issues. And it's not the end of the world. It is just basically the pain of going through a tank with dry rock and dry sand, and it goes on for months, and you deal with these algae phases, and it just sucks. And it's almost impossible to avoid them. And when people show me their situation, I'm just like, yeah, you know what you need? You need time. Just has to sit there and go through this process and start it, endure it, end it, go through the next problem phase, end it. And then eventually, after like 9 months or so, it all settles in and starts doing its job. And now it's actually behaving like live rock. But that's a rough 9 months. I'm not going to lie. It's not pleasant, and I totally feel your pain, which is why I use live rock and why I love to have rock on hand. And to be honest, I have none. Everything's in all my tanks. I have 3 systems going right now full of rock, and I've got no rock left. So if I needed some now, I'd have to use a piece of dry rock. Oh. And I'm not putting down the dry rock sellers. I just know what it does. I have a friend in Dallas. He set up a new Red Sea reefer tank, dry sand, dry rock, and he knows this hobby. He had tons of frags in there, and he says, Mark, I had no idea what I got myself into. It was so frustrating. I cannot believe how difficult this was compared to just using live rock and live sand in the past, where I just put my tanks together, put my corals in, and it just grew. So he was really kind of grumbling, you know. I get it. So I'm recommending to you, if you can get some live rock, you can definitely get live sand, which is awesome. And you don't have to buy the entire tank's worth of sand in live sand. You could get basically 80% dry sand and 20% live sand. And live sand is a bag of sand that has water in it, and it'll say right on the bag, live sand, and you're going to say, this is a ripoff, they're trying to screw me. They are not. What they've done is they've sold you a bag of wet sand that has dormant bacteria in it. And once it gets circulation and water, you know, I mean a lot of water, they hatch and they spread. And every single time I set up a tank with live sand, within a couple of, well, I'd say in the first week, I'd start to see all these beautiful little snowflakes all over my glass. And they're little tiny, they're a type of jellyfish that are very brief. You see them for a week or two and you're like, what are these? And then they're gone. So, you know, I think that's what they hatch. I think it's what's hatching. I don't even know what they are, but they're so pretty. And you know, I wouldn't even mind having more. You know, I love the critters. I love the things that come off live rock. Okay, I'm not going to go off on a big tangent. I'm just saying live sand is not a hoax. Definitely get some for your tank. It will definitely help your system. And you're going to need a cleaning magnet. Now, I use this one. There are lots on the market. This one here is called Algae Free, the brand. And it's a chunk of wood. The inside floats, so you can bring it back to you when you need to reach it, hopefully, unless it really takes off and then you have to chase it. And I love these because you can replace the pad on the inside and the outside. Work really well. I've been using them forever, and I'm really happy with it. But there's another brand that's very popular called the Flipper, and that one, I have neither piece near me, sorry. They move around. I have been using it a little bit. There's a metal blade to really take off the difficult stuff, and then there's the soft scrubby for the light film algae. So, you know, that's another brand you might want to use. And then there's the mag float. It's been around forever. The only problem I have with the mag float is that the pad on the inside is really thin, and it is possible, especially on an acrylic tank, to possibly, you know, it smushes against the acrylic, and it doesn't have enough of the felt and the scrubby, and so the plastic housing itself may actually hit your tank and scratch it. And that is a concern. If you have an acrylic tank, you want to also be very aware that it will scratch super easily, and you have to be on top of your game to avoid scratching it. So glass tanks are preferable. Starfire glass is totally what I tell you to buy. Costs a lot, but it's tank. I mean, the tank you're going to have for years and years and years, and you love that beautiful clarity. So I recommend it. You're going to need a reach in your tank, and that's going to involve either a chair, a stepladder, standing on the back of your spouse, or a walkboard. And that will definitely make your life easier. Definitely have one. Don't try to do something like stay on your tippy toes and try and scrape, because invariably one day you are going to pull the entire tank on top of you. So get yourself a nice, solid, stable stepladder. I know one person who missed a step and wrenched his knee, and you know they had to do all kinds of surgery to fix it. So I mean, be careful. You know, try to make sure you're on a solid foundation when you're working around your tank. And then I'm going to now go into some of the other things that you're going to need that cost a lot of money. Your tank is going to need some really good lighting. I don't recommend cheap stuff. I don't recommend, well, that's it. You know, cheap stuff is invariably you're not going to get long-term results. And you're going to always have some people saying, I've got such and such, it costs nothing, it works great, I've had it this many years. Doesn't matter to me, I'm never going to buy it. I'm always going to recommend something a little more high-end because that is how I'm wired. I don't know, maybe I got... What is it people call me? I don't know. Something derogatory, but basically, you know, like I'm not understanding where you come from. I totally get it. I started with a 29-gallon aquarium. I chose to go to this size tank, you know, these size tanks combined. And as you do it, you get a nicer and nicer version of what you started with. And the higher-end lights I really like. I like all the features they come with. You're going to be spending hundreds of dollars on lighting. You're going to need some in-tank circulation. You can see right next to my head right there behind. That's the Vortec pump. I use Vortec pumps in all of my tanks for flow. The gyres exist. There are other brands. The wave pumps are another ones from Apex. These are different pumps you need in the tank for flow to move the water. And it's very important that you don't have any dead spots. Because when your tank has dead spots, you end up dealing with a lot of algae issues and detritus building up, and you don't want that. So I definitely recommend that you have good in-tank flow and good lighting, and then you're going to need some kind of way to replenish alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium that's being used up. And that is going to involve mixing your own solution if you're DIY, and then pouring it in the tank every day, or buying a dosing pump that trickles it in. So you're going to need that, or you're going to need a calcium reactor, plus you're going to need a dosing pump anyway for the extra things you want to add. And so you're going to deal with containers that hold solution, a pump that has to plug in with multiple heads to do each element, because you can't mix them up into one. And you're going to be trickling in the exact amount that you need based on the test kits that I told you to use 20 minutes ago. So it's really important that you have this solution on hand and you don't run out. And you got to watch your containers, and if they get low, you got to refill them. And you've got to test your dosing pumps once a week to make sure they're trickling properly and not clogged shut. If you don't want to use dosing pumps and you want to go the calcium reactor route, you definitely can do that. And what that is, it's actually an alkalinity reactor, and that will be the video that I've promised for a year and a half. It's coming, it's coming. And that video, it will go into how they operate and all the different components that makes it all tick. But it is how I've run my reef since 2004. So I really like it. And I kind of hate dosing. So I would never tell someone you have to get a calcium reactor, because I know dosing is so popular these days. But the amount of money people are spending on dosing systems, you might as well have owned a calcium reactor, because dollar for dollar, you're about the same price. And you're going to need something to track your tank and make sure it's okay, which means a controller, and I recommend the Apex controller. And that is a device it's a computer with a bunch of power bars that you plug everything into. And with that main brain, you communicate to it from any browser on any device. And you tell it, I want my lights to turn on at 11 a.m. I want them to turn off at 9 p.m. You say I want my temperature to be 78.5 to 79.5, and it controls the heaters and chillers. You say I want it to dose, and it will dose that specified amount for a certain duration. You can tell it to go into feed mode. It'll stop certain pumps while you feed the tank, and then they'll restart automatically. You can program it to do water changes, which it could either do the water change for you, where you just have a maximum amount of salt water ready, and you have let's just pretend you have an empty container nearby, and you have it using pumps to move water out of your sump or tank and then water it back in. You're also going to need a way to replenish water that evaporates, and that's going to take a top-off system, or again, a component of the Apex controller where it can top off your system. So you have all these pieces of gear that I'm going to tell you to use, but they are going to make your life easier so you can enjoy the tank. I don't spend hours working on my tank. Instead, I mean, there are people out there that might mess with their tank every single day, where I basically tinker with it once a week for an hour or two. And that's pretty much all the maintenance I do on my tank, is about 2 hours a week. The rest of the time, I just kind of glance at things and make sure it's okay. You're going to need some kind of media to make the water clear. And so that would be granulated activated carbon, or what we call GAC. So you need that, and I recommend it in a reactor. Because if you just put it inside a mesh bag and throw it in the sump or in the back corner of your tank, it's not nearly as effective as water flowing through the media. So you need a reactor, which is basically a chamber that water goes in and comes back out, and it goes through the media to get out. I have a video about that as well. So these are the pieces of gear I think you need. And then finally, you're going to need food for your livestock. And there's all kinds on the market. There's frozen, there's dry, there's liquid, there's refrigerated foods. There is the powdered foods that you mix up with water, like I do with melevsreef. And matter of fact, melevsreef, I talked about it. I'm just going to go into this really quick. I contacted the owner a week ago and said, so it seems like when I put your food in my tank, my glass stays cleaner longer, and it even seems to clean itself. And he kind of laughed. He goes, that's exactly true. He said, it's a wonderful side effect of our food. I was like, wow. So then about 2-3 days ago, I sent him a message on his Facebook page. You know, I went to their page to, I was going to tease them on their wall, and they don't let you post on their wall. But a little chat box comes up, and it says, hi, Reef, how can we help you? And so I said, I'm too lazy to clean my glass, so I threw some of your food in my tank instead. And then I wrote, Lars is real, which stands for lazy ass reefer syndrome. And they of course laughed, and they respond to like, glad we like you like our food. I really do. It's really neat, and I'm only using it 2 times a week, maybe 3 times a week, 2 or 3. I don't know. I'm not really tracking it. I try to remember to do it about every 3 days, 2 times a week, and that is a powdered food that you use a 1/4 teaspoon per 25 gallons of water, and it makes your corals grow and your glass stays cleaner longer, which is amazing. I'm loving that. Super lazy. All right, so I've talked about all things I think you need to buy. If I've forgotten something, you're like, man, why didn't you bring this up? I'm going to add these other things that you need to keep in mind that you're going to need. You're going to need a lot of this. A lot of it. And then after you spend a lot of it, you'll be down to a few of these. And eventually you'll be down to ones. And it's funny, people say, hey, where's a good place to eat? And where's a good restaurant? And I always tell them, I don't know, I have a reef tank. All my money goes in there. But it's going to cost a lot. You're going to spend a lot. Don't ever think, do not think this hobby will pay for itself, because it does not. This is a hobby where you're going to spend money. Just like you're going to spend money building a model airplane, or you're going to buy a boat, or you're going to be a fisherman. All these hobbies cost money. If you wanted to be into bowling, which is sports, not really a hobby, you got to buy the ball, got to buy the bag, got to buy the shoes. I mean, you end up getting the clothing. You go all in. If you're a scuba diver, you buy all this gear you need because you're diving. I mean, every hobby costs money. That's the definition of a hobby. It's going to cost you money. This is not an investment. This is not a way to make money. There are ways to recoup some cash, but do not go in thinking it's going to pay for itself and I'm going to make myself rich with a side business. Don't think that. Not usually the case. And the ones that do that are very brief. They're in, they're out, and they're gone because they realize it's not long term. And that leads me to my next point. Something you absolutely must have in this hobby that you cannot buy anywhere is patience. So important that you have a lot of patience. When something goes wrong in your tank and you fix the problem, you still need to wait 12 weeks for the corals to catch up. It's not going to take care of itself overnight. And you're going to have to deal with waiting for it to get better. And years ago, I had a Prodibio overdose. I found a way to overdose a product you cannot overdose. I found a way. And it killed all the greens in my tank. And I knew in 12 weeks they'll look fine. And basically that's what it took, 3 months. And at that point, things were finally back to relatively normal. So if you're dealing with problems with your tank right now and you catch the problem, that's great. But to think you'll be right back to where you were 3 days ago, no. You lose a lot of time when things go wrong, which is why it's so important that you test and observe and make sure that all your equipment is running properly and that you're not neglecting your tank. And the longer you neglect it, the longer it's going to take to fix it, and the way more cost. It's going to cost so much more to fix things when you let it get really out of hand. So if you don't like spending money, I've spent enough. Then take care of what you own. Don't buy anything else. And I mean that. There was a guy that called me up, local area. He says, Mark, I saw this really cool nitrate reactor from Germany. I said, I've never even heard of it. And he says, here's the link. And he sent it to me, and I looked it up. And I said, okay, that's pretty cool. And he said, yeah, I'm thinking about getting one. I said, well, what are your nitrates? And he said, they're 0. And I just wrote him back, said, well, why do you need it? And you just saw the little 3 dots on your phone, and he's thinking. And he said, Mark, you just saved me $500. We don't need every piece of gear. We just need to take care of what we already own using the things we already own, the things we've bought. So I always recommend clean the things you have. Take good care of them. Make them last as long as you can. Don't toss things out just because you got a new one, because the old one could be something useful for like a quarantine tank or a hospital tank or fragging or whatever you're going to do in that regard. Those extra things that you don't need for this system might be useful for a secondary system, especially like a temporary situation where there's an emergency. and you have to set up a tank because your display leaked or something like that. And then finally, visit your fish store. Don't avoid them. Don't think they're out to get you. Fish stores are awesome. The local fish stores have helped us so much over the years. And I always tell people to support your local businesses, to support your local fish store. Go in there, buy something, and get out. And I know, you're like, well, I can get it cheaper online. I said, yeah, I know. I run an online business. I totally understand that. But the point is, that relationship you have with the fish store is critical, because when something really goes wrong, are you going to buy something online and wait 24 to 48 hours for it to show up? Or are you going to run to the fish store to get what you need now to solve what's happening in there right now? Because this is life. These are things that are happening right now, and we want them to be healthy and happy, and we don't want them in distress. We don't want them gasping. We don't want corals all closed up tight. You know, we want things to be all right. And when those guys are no longer in business because we wouldn't buy from them, it's going to suck. So we need to take care of those guys. And when I travel across the nation, I'm in these stores to visit them, and I usually try to find something I need. I'll try to remember, do I need a copper test kit? Just anything, some little thing I can buy that helps them with their bottom line just a little bit. Just spread the economy around a little bit. Support those stores. Hang out in there, learn from them, listen, observe, explore, see what thing you might want. If you can't afford it, maybe you can put a deposit on it. Maybe you can make payments on it. I don't know. I mean, talk to your fish store owner. But I have most of the corals that I got over the years are from hobbyists or when I was visiting a fish store. And fish I typically get from the store as well because I want to see them in person before I buy them. I have bought some fish online. I wouldn't say half of my fish, and I think it'd be less. But I really do like to go to fish stores and see the fish that are in stock and see the corals they have. But I tend to walk out with fish food and test kits. That's my method. So that's kind of my list for today of the things you gotta have. And feel free in the next few minutes we'll talk about these things and see what maybe I omitted to include. But I think I've got the basic list of what you would need to set up a tank successfully, with the gear that I think you would need. So hit me up with some of your questions now. I'm here. I'm noticing that the lights are flickering, but it's not flickering here. It's like a camera thing from the webcam. I might just move you since we're done with that. I'm sorry. So jerky. And we'll bring this down a little bit. And I'll probably have white forehead. Perfect. It's so weird what it does that. I'm going to get closer. I notice when I get really close, you get some pink skin. So... Yes, Mad Dogs, you're right. You need tank, rock, saltwater fish, filter, lights, lol, that's it. I included lol. Salifert test kits. Yes, that's a good one. I used Salifert for many years, and it's just I've migrated to Elos. But I actually have a bunch of them here to do some videos of how to use a Salifert test kit. That's going to happen this year. Oh, by the way, I uploaded 2 videos this week. One I snuck out, and you only saw it if you happen to go to the community tab on my YouTube page. And it was the one with the porcelain crab. And that was done in 4K. And it was done in Final Cut Pro. So that video came out, and I just wanted to try and see how that software works. And it's a lot of work, but I think I can do it. I'm just going to have to do it a lot to get comfortable in there. And then the other video I uploaded was yesterday, and that was about skimmers overflowing. That was actually a video I'd put on Facebook last year. And it's a really good one, and yet I know it's basic. I get it. But that video was not about, oh no, a skimmer's overflowing. It was overflowing because of a problem. And it was overflowing to where you couldn't stop it from overflowing. When that happens, that is something you need to resolve. And what usually causes it was, I went into it in the video. It's going to be some kind of food, some kind of chemical, or even an introduction of some kind of pollutant like new filter socks. And you can have the skimmer dialed all the way down to the lowest point, and it's still just gushing over like a volcano, and it won't stop, like a bad science experiment. And just turning it off for a few weeks is not the solution. I want to solve it that day. I want to solve it in a matter of hours. So that video went into what exactly I do And that information has been on my website for years, but it wasn't a YouTube video. So I uploaded it last night, or yesterday, because it wasn't on the channel, it just belonged here. So that way it was there. And I saw one person comment, and he's like, man, this stuff is so common sense. Why do you have to show a video? Oh my God. And I was like, because there's people that get super frustrated, and they watch their skimmer do this, and they don't know what to do to solve it. That's why I do this channel, to help you be successful. I'm never here to mock you. So, and I'm not saying he's mocking you. He's probably mocking me for making such a simplistic video. But I felt like it was an important topic, and that's why I shared it. If I ever have a topic that's not important, I guess I'll just put at the beginning, this is a total waste of your time, so do what you want with it. Fizzy Jesus asked, what are the best channels for tips for beginners? Best channels as in YouTube channels? I would probably point you to Bulk Reef Supply if you're not hanging out on my channel, because they cover everything. And I hope to emulate them and do as well as they do, but they get a lot of love from a lot of people. Okay, here's a good one. What about using ocean water? There are some people that are able to do that. They're very lucky. Like, for example, I think it's San Diego, I hope I have this right, they can go to the Scripps Institute and get free water. The New England Aquarium provides water too, and you just go there with your jugs and you fill them up. But you have to haul water back and forth. You know, I mean, you got to haul it home, and you got to haul empty jugs to the destination. You want the water to be filtered, which is what those two aquariums are doing. They filter it in advance before you get it. It's not like they're just scooping the ocean and giving you ocean water. That's not what you're getting. And you can ask them. They'll tell you what you're getting. If you were to go in the ocean and get water, it's probably okay. I've never done that myself. I'm thinking that you want to at least run it through a particulate filter to capture any large things. But there's always the risk of what was in the water just before you got there, or what is flowing through the water underneath the surface, or what is laying on the surface. You know, got to make sure that your water is safe. So I've not done it. There are people that are benefiting from it, and there's others that are not, like myself, that are landlocked, and we have to make our own. DC asks about what maintains bubbles on a bubble tip anemone, and you've read that too much flow will reduce the bubbles and low flow increases them. I have tried low flow, low light, high alkalinity, low alkalinity, high temperature, low temperature. My anemones don't care, and no one on the web can say categorically that this will give you bubbles or take them away. It seems to be an ongoing mystery that I would love to see the debate end. I have tried everything I know, and I have a bunch of anemones behind me here that are pretty much long tentacle, but they make some bubbles from time to time, but I don't get those tight bubbles like you see that are so gorgeous. I don't know why. Jake asks, do I need a skimmer? I tell everyone to use a protein skimmer. Everyone. It is your safety net. You know, if you were walking a tightrope, I would want a net under you so you don't kill yourself. And a protein skimmer is there to capture stuff that hits the water all the time. And if the skimmer is overflowing because something major hit the tank, you know, whatever that might be, that's a visual indicator something happened to your tank. Of course, if you've got the Apex controller as well as the skimmer, you should get a notification on your phone, on your watch, you know, on your email saying there's a problem with the tank, check it immediately. And if you get fancy, you hook up some kind of cool flashing light or red light or something around your aquarium that turns red when the alarm status has been achieved. You know, when something is out of range, it triggers an alert, and there's this red light right there when you glance at your tank, and it's like, oh, something's not right. Let me check on that. Because the worst thing you can do is be sitting there watching a movie next to your aquarium as everything is dying, and you didn't even notice. All you do is take your head and turn it that way. It's like, really? How could that happen? How could the tank get that cold? I had no idea the heater failed. So being notified with a controller is really, really important. And yes, protein skimmer I highly recommend. Aaron, I don't know about this F factor. I don't know if that's something I can do in my iPhone. But I do know there's an app in there that gives me some extra controls that I may start trying out. I was talking with a friend, and he was telling me about some really nice features in this app that's been sitting on my phone ignored. So I might give that a shot with the Moment lenses and see what it does, but I don't know the answer to that. You're talking about f-stop, or I don't know what f-factor is. Josh, your answer is yes to either one. You can use power heads or gyres, whichever you like. Speaking of events, ReefWorks is happening, I feel like it's the end of this month. 24th, 23rd? I don't know, it's coming up. I didn't grab that date before the show, but it's happening in Seattle. I'm doing a presentation there with Dwayne about aquascaping, so you definitely want to attend that. And then the end of March, here in the Dallas area, is going to be Aquashella, and Dwayne and I are doing the same presentation again. So if you couldn't see it in Seattle, you can come see it in Dallas. And those are two really good fish events to go to. So I would definitely recommend it. So Seattle is in February. Look up ReefWorks, which I'm going to see how I can do this for you guys. I'll do caps. And we'll just hit add and see where it goes. There it is, on my face, perfect. So you want to look at ReefWorks and find that in Google, real easy to find. And that is a one-day event. It's on a Saturday. It's in February. And then 2 days later, I'm going to be in Florida for the club meeting for FMAS, Florida Marine Aquarium Society. And then the end of March will be this will be on my face again. Ha! Aquashella Dallas. I guess I should have done the other one too. And what I'll do after this video uploads, I'll look up all these addresses and you know, the URLs and the dates and stuff like that, and I'll put them in the video description so you can actually click those and take you right to them. But those three things are happening in the next 60 days. So that's exciting. All right. I'm going to leave them there for a couple minutes. Also, I'm going to throw this on the screen just because I like to do it. I did it last video and I never turned it off. So Club melevsreef, we have a great group. A lot of people are helping each other. We welcome you there to get help with your tank and answer your questions. I do want to mention, I'm getting a lot of people sending me messages to my personal Mark Levinson page on Facebook. I'd prefer if you're hitting me up on melevsreef. Mark Levinson is private, it's me, and I'd prefer to just handle business through business, and you're kind of business, technically, you know? And I don't accept friend requests at this point. I'm putting everyone into following melevsreef. So that would be, do I have that link? No. What's this thing do? That's not it. Let's try this one. So this is my website, melevsreef.com. It's where I sell things for the aquarium hobby. It's what supports this. This is the only thing I do for a living. Yes, I just sit around making videos. No, I build things out of acrylic and I sell other aquarium products like RODI systems and additives and filtration. I sell all that. And that is to help you with your hobby. And so anything you buy from my shop helps keep me in business and helps me continue to do videos and so forth and so on and feed Spock. So there's Spock right there. But the melevsreef page on Facebook, I guess I'll have to type it out because I don't see it here handy. So facebook.com/melevsreef. That is going, I'll put this right here. That is the page you want to go to, and you can send me messages through there. But jump into the group, because that way you'll get an answer from someone immediately, because everyone's there to help each other. So I'm going to do that. All right. Thank you, Emmanuel. I knew I wanted to put this in my thing. Okay, let me clean all this stuff off the screen. Give me a second here. Go away, go away, go away, go away, go away, and go away. We want this on the screen. And this was one, it was in my head, but I didn't put it on my list. What about a backup tank in case of disaster? I'm going to take it a step further. What about keeping power going when the power goes out? All my Vortec pumps have a battery backup. And it's literally a battery only for the Vortec pump. So the Vortec pump has a power supply with a black brick that goes to the wall. And there's an extra wire that goes from the driver straight into the battery. And that battery keeps the pumps running for up to 24 hours long. So the water in my tank is still moving. It's moving slower, but it's moving. And that's important. And having any kind of circulation in your tank in a power outage, everyone that buys an aquarium should have power or a backup power plan in place, whether it's a bubbler with an air pump that runs on batteries, or they have a small power inverter that they can plug things into that are very low voltage, or the battery backups I'm talking about, or the UPSs that you use for computers that will get you by for a few minutes. You can use deep cycle batteries and daisy chain them to create a bank of power that will last X amount of time depending on what you've plugged onto it. And then finally, a generator, which would be like a gas power generator or a whole house generator, depending how all in you go on protecting yourself. But to keep your livestock alive, to keep from getting too cold, to hold water in an emergency, you're going to need to plan for that. And that is all part of what you need to do. And having an actual backup tank, like Emmanuel is saying here, that one's a little bit excessive. I mean, I love the idea. And I've thought of it myself. When I had my 280 gallon, I thought about having an extra 280 sitting in the back room, so if I ever had to replace it, it'd be ready. And guess what? When the 280 leaked, I was thinking, well, that wasn't such a dumb idea. I could have had another one ready. Instead, I thought up this dream tank right here that's behind me, and it took 7 months to make that happen. And that is another series of videos that I've told you guys earlier in January that I want to start doing this year, which will be a series of how I set up this tank based on all the information that happened way back in 2010 and 2011. So that is something you have to look forward to, and it should start rolling out this month. So that's exciting. Now that I'm getting used to Final Cut, I can start building stuff in there. Cameron, this is funny you said that. There's a lot of people that are on YouTube that refuse to use Facebook, and there's people on Facebook that refuse to use YouTube. So I've been hitting both sides with different content. Rather than putting the same thing on both, I think it's kind of boring. So I've been giving them something, and I've been giving you guys something. And I felt like that was a way to kind of hit both markets, even though I know it's not identical info. And I don't know. I might end up doing something different, this year. I might choose to put all my content on YouTube with teasers on Facebook to get you over to see the entire video on YouTube. And now with videos potentially being in 4K, not the streams won't be, but the edited videos, people watching them on their TVs, they're going to not want to be watching those on Facebook anyway. They're going to want to get onto a platform that's nice and big and enjoyable. Let me take this off the screen. Steve, this is a good question, and I don't think I have that mandarin anymore. I haven't seen any trace of it. I've been actually scouring the reef looking. I've been exploring. I just haven't seen it. I don't know. I never saw anything. There was this weird thing on one of its fins, and I talked to some experts, and they said, don't touch it, just leave it alone. And so it just had that one little thing on its fin, but I just haven't seen it. And I got that mandarin in 2011, so I had it for a good 7 or 8 years. But I noticed about 3-4 months ago, I hadn't seen it in a while. And I haven't seen it since either, so I think that it is gone. So I'm going to have to find a new one. And I think this time I might get a pair. That'd be nice. Best way to get rid of bubble algae in a nano reef is to get your hand wet and to start plucking it out. And if you pop the bubbles, don't worry. People say, oh, don't pop the bubbles, but you can pop them. It's okay. Let your filtration remove the stuff. You can remove the rock from the tank and you can scrape the bubbles off like over the sink and then put the rock back. That's one method. You can add an emerald crab and it will work on it. You can add a few emerald crabs and it'll work on it faster. That is a known method for removing Valonia. But yeah, manual labor is usually the easiest and most effective way to handle the majority of it and let the crabs get the last of it. Do you use carbon? I use carbon occasionally. I haven't used it in probably 2 months. I like to use a half a cup per 50 gallons in a reactor that I set up my tank. And I was kind of wanting to do it last night. I said, oh, I should do it last night so the tank will look nice today. Of course, on live stream, the tank never looks good. It looks great to my eye. You're looking at like this blue mess. I'm actually seeing it with 10K lighting. It doesn't look like what you're seeing. It looks much nicer and it's colorful. And it's just what the camera does. Now that tank is more in the blue spectrum, and so it's kind of messy, you know. But I don't know. Let's try this. I know it's pointless, but I'm going to try it anyway. Let's see if we have enough wire. I don't know if we have enough wire to do what I'm trying to do here. Oh, and we're trapped behind a cord. Let's see what happens. Yeah, see, that's pretty. Man, I need another one of these cameras. See the front glass? I haven't cleaned it in 3 days. That's not bad. Spock, move. You whale. Isn't that funny how the tank looks so blue from a distance, but up close it's actually more realistic? And that is the VCA flow accelerator I installed a few weeks ago. By the way, I wrote him last night because I'm always trying to learn stuff. And I asked him if the VCA RPG, random flow generator, if it could be used in acid. You know, could we soak it in acid or would it just melt into a puddle? And he told me, he says, I have no idea. Go for it. Do it, Mark. So at some point I'm going to take one off and stick it in acid and see what it does. I was just wondering, it's 3D printed. You know, what does that stuff do in acid? I have no idea. He thinks it'll be okay. And he told me to give it, you know, to torture it. Like I did his vacuum attachment, which I thought was awesome. The reactions from people that watched that video, again, it was funny to me because there's people like there, what a ripoff. I'm like, it's a $10 piece of plastic and you're calling it a ripoff? It worked. I cleaned my sump and I didn't have to pull out a shop vac. I thought that was a win. And let's be realistic. Could I have done it faster another way? Yes, but I wanted to use this method. Could I have done it quicker? Yes, if I didn't film it for YouTube. I could have just hooked up the tube and started vacuuming and been done in 5 minutes. Instead, I was like, let me film me sucking up dust. Way more involved. I'm taking my time and I'm watching the screen to make sure I'm doing it right. And I'm thinking, don't get the pump clogged up with those stupid tube worms. And it just became this thing. And then, of course, did I do a 3-minute video to just like quickly do a commercial for it? No. I did an educational thing and showed you the actual process of what it's like to use it and shaking out the bits of crap that got in it and then, you know, continue. But yeah, and then I upload the video and I thought, you know what? It looks so nice on that side. I'm going to go do the other side. So I was actually on the phone with a friend. I had an AirPod in my ear so I could listen to our conversation. No phone near me. And I vacuumed the other side during the entire phone call. And now both sides of my sump are nice and crystal clear. It's nice. I think it was a great little product. And it was 3D printed. And if the guy sells 200 of them or 2,000 of them, I don't care. If he made some money, that's fine. I don't sell those. I mean, he'll let me, but it's like, whatever. But to say it's a ripoff, that's crazy. And to say, oh, you should use a shop vac. Have you ever used a shop vac in a sump before? Do you know what it's like? I'll tell you what it's like. You've got this 5-gallon bucket next to you. You got a sump with 30 gallons of water in it. You start shop vacing the sump, and the bucket's full instantly, and you have to dump the bucket out and reset it and suck some more. And you keep doing this over and over and over until finally you've gotten down to all the crud is out of there. Or you do a big water change and remove most of the water, and then you shop vac the last of it. Totally doable. Yes, you can. But I cleaned my entire sump without doing a water change and not having to deal with shop vacs and hoses and all that stuff. I just did my thing, and I made a video. I just saw Joey B said, I finally made a live video. Welcome. The Rubbermaid tubs are great. Those big ones that they use for like feeding cattle, those are excellent. They're food grade, and you can definitely use them for livestock. Some people use them as frag tanks. Other people use them as sumps. I have used a couple of them in an emergency after my tank leaked to hold all my livestock while I was dealing with a new tank. So that's a nice thing to have. Scrolling really hard and fast now. Get caught up with you guys. You guys have been chatty today. Green hair algae in my Zoa garden. Let's talk about that for a minute. I have a video about this on my channel, how to get rid of green hair algae. And it's going to involve some manual labor. It's going to involve a bowl of water. You're going to reach in your tank and you're going to squish some into your fingers and you're going to put it in the bowl, rinse your fingers clean, put your hand in the tank, grab some more, rinse your fingers, and do this over and over and over until it's gone. You know, until you get rid of all you can stand. And then get a cleanup crew and put those guys in your tank to clean what's left. And if they are somewhere else and they aren't where you want them to be, put them back inside your patch of algae so they'll mow that down. And if you say, I already have a cleanup crew, well, your crew is lazy. They're full of food. They're not hungry. Get a new one, because those guys are starving. They're ready to go, and they will mow it down. My frag system was full of algae, and it is so much better right now. And, the cleanup crew just went through and just worked on it. And so I highly recommend that. But watch the video. But I basically told you the basics. Lower your phosphates, pull out all you can, and then add a cleanup crew. This is a good question. What can make DKH drop in a saltwater mixed tank? When you've made a batch of saltwater and you let it cycle circulate, and you check it and the alkalinity is low. It can precipitate out and just kind of collapse to the bottom of the barrel. It is possible. There are certain brands that seem more inclined to do this, which is odd to me. And I've measured my own salt and noticed after it had been sitting in circulation for a long time, like a couple of months, it would be down. But you can buffer it up with soda ash and still use it. So the best thing you can possibly do with a water change is always measure your pH and or alkalinity, your temperature and your salinity, and get those two to match. And if you can get those to match, your reef to your mixed salt water, you can do the water change and use it all up. But it can just kind of go down. I'm not really sure why. All right. And we've been at this for over an hour. It's time to wrap this up. There's 158 of you on here right now. I don't know how many we had before, but thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. We do these live streams every week, and I'm going to wrap this up with 2 new products that came in the mail this week for me to try out. So the first one actually arrived yesterday, so I'll show you that one first. They're a little bit wet because they were in my fridge. Something refrigerated? What could it be? So this is from a brand which makes me giggle. And I'm not a drug user. But it's by Additives, and they're called super eggs. And it's a type of food, but edibles? Come on, really? Are they out of Denver? And then they have something else called egg brew. So I'm going to try these out of my tank. He actually sent me several bottles because I have such a big tank. Let's smell it. Give it the smell test. And it actually says on the bottle, refrigerate after opening. So I guess technically I didn't have to refrigerate it, but it arrived cold, and I don't think I was weather related. So let's see. It smells fishy. That's the best description I can give you. Sorry. I have no idea. It says that it has protein and fat in it. It's a special blend of our pure brine solution, providing nutrients, vitamins, and minerals with no additives or preservatives. That's the brew. The other one says that it is a blend of nutritious, high-protein, high-fat, omega-3 and omega-6 rich natural food source, suspended in a nutrient-rich brine for freshwater marine fish, inverts, and corals. The average size is 1 to 2 millimeters. They are ideal food source or supplement for carnivores and omnivores. It says to shake it well, again, refrigerate after opening. And you got to use it within 4 to 6 weeks after it's been opened. And finally, it says not for human consumption, because everyone always thinks, oh, can I eat it? Let's see what this one smells like. Oh, this one, the lid kind of is a little bit open. And you can kind of see it's got like little eggs on there. Not much of a smell to it. Maybe I have to leave it on the counter for a week. Kidding. So I'll try these out and see what they do. And then the other thing that I got came in the mail today. And the brand it's from Reef Bright. The guys that make my lighting. Okay. So this one here, it's a powder. I think it's a bunch of bacteria, actually. It kind of, I have no idea. I'm guessing it's going to be like Benareef. Because this one here says Live Rock Enhance. And I'll just read it to you. Enhance the pore structure of live rock and sand. Enhance and maintain biological filtration cycle. And enhance curing of live rock. Well, that's interesting. And then the other one is called Reef Enhance. And it says it enhances coral and growth of corals and invertebrates, nutrient utilization and intake, and enhances pod diversity and population count. And this jar, under ingredients, says minimum of 4 billion CFU/G. I don't know what CFU is. Cubic feet unit per gram of marine microbes in a carrier conducive of existing and adhesion. I don't know what that means. Sorry, guys. The other one, the Live Rock Enhance, includes cultures of proprietary microbes, including Bacillus subtilis, Bacillus licheniformis, and attendant enzymes. Enzymes, that's something that I've seen in other products. It also has botanical extracts to aid adhesion. And it says it has 7 billion of that CFU/G. I don't know what this is. And it's funny. Sometimes you just get a product sent to you because you're in the industry and you have no idea what it's for. So I just want to show it to you because it just happened. I'll let you know if it's anything. This is kind of the trick. Like, where would I use this? My best bet would probably be to use it in the frag system because it's a 60-gallon system, and that way there's enough. And then see what it does. See if it makes any changes with how the rock looks, how the substrate looks. That's what I'll be doing. Colony forming unit. Thank you, Andrea. It's a good guess. Are you right? That's it. All right. There was a request. Can you give us an update on your Kimura peristaltic pump? On the Facebook page. I'll just tell you now. And I'll do an update there too. So I've been running that pump for a few months. It started making kind of a clicking sound. I contacted tech support, and they told me to really pack the gear, the wheel that turns, with silicone grease. So I did. And now it's making a different noise. It's not a huge noise. It's not the end of the world noise, but it's annoying me. And I am wondering if maybe part of the noise is because I've been running that same piece of tubing that the roller rubs against for about 3 months, I guess. And it might be the end of its lifespan because those are limited. And I have to replace it anyway, so I'm kind of thinking if I replace that tube, maybe the sound will stop. You know, maybe the tube is getting harder from being, used and run hot for so long because I'm still putting in 80 milliliters of solution a minute. So I will, of course, do another update later. But for now, it's kind of making a noise. I'd rather it be dead silent. It's not. Other than that, I haven't calibrated it. I'm leaving it alone. And then finally, someone recommended a type of food you can make yourself. Paul, thank you very much for the recommendation. Of course you can make your own food. I'm just showing you stuff that's new. Today is Saturday, Water Test Saturday. It means you're going to test the water in your tank. You're going to take all your results, and you're going to share them with us via Instagram or via Club melevsreef. And I would love to see your results. I will be posting my results today. I will be doing a video tonight that will go on Facebook that will feature a reef tank that I visited in Houston a couple days ago. It's going to take me a little time to build that one because I'm using Final Cut Pro and I'm learning how to use it. But I think it'll be enjoyable, and it's not a oh my god tank. It's going to be a normal reef tank with that's been running now for about 7 months, and it's very pretty. And I'm going to show you a issue that's happening in that tank as well as part of the video. But I think you'll enjoy it, and so be sure you check it out. And then at some point I might add it to the YouTube channel as well. We'll see. I don't know. It's my Facebook video, so you can look forward to that. And that is it. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and thank you very much for participating in the live stream, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.